Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, March the 11th, 2024. Today I want to talk about France again. I did talk about Emmanuel Macron quite recently, but I was asked to look at the horoscope of a man by the name of Jordan Bardella. I don't know if I pronounced that right. And Jordan Bardella is a politician from the French party, the National Rally. I think that's the Rassemblement National. That used to be the Front National, the National Front, but they changed their name. And he seems to be a rising star, this man, Jordan Bardella. And he is extremely young. And he's 28 years old. And he's already president of the National Rally. And I believe he's also a member of the European Parliament. And so people are, are beginning to think that maybe he's the one to make the breakthrough, which the current leader of the National Rally, Marine Le Pen, just hasn't quite been able to do. I mean, she's tried a couple of times to win the presidency, but she just can't make it. I think reason being that there are enough people in France that regard someone like her as being unacceptable as the president of France, so they will just hold their nose and vote for whoever her opponent is. In the last two elections, that was Emmanuel Macron. So I want to look at the horoscope of Jordan Bardella. I also want to look at the horoscope of Marine Le Pen. Yeah, I think Marine Le Pen is kind of unlucky. I just don't think she has the luck needed to be president. I just don't think she on her own is going to make that breakthrough, and I will be explaining why. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, March the 11th, 2024. So top right, just to illustrate that I really do have a French theme. There's a French flag. There's Marine Le Pen, and there is Jordan Bardella, and also, of course, Emmanuel Macron. I mean, I might briefly look at his horoscope, but I have looked at his horoscope pretty recently, so I don't really want to spend any time at all looking at his chart. Okay, so what is going on today? This is a chart for today, which is set for noon, New York time, March the 11th. And we can see that Venus is at 29 degrees 42 minutes Aquarius. In other words, it is just about to go into Pisces, and it goes into Pisces at when does it go into Pisces? At 10 to 10 in the evening, London time. So if you're in New York, that would be, I have to remember that there is now daylight saving time in the United States, but we don't have daylight saving time in Europe. So I have to remember that now New York is not 5 hours ahead, which it usually is. It's now 4 hours ahead. I just completely forgotten that. Unfortunately, someone in the comments section reminded me that it was that we have daylight saving time coming up. So that is 21. So 10 to 9 in London. In New York is going to be 10 to 5 in the afternoon, which is going to be in Los Angeles 10 to 2 in the afternoon. So from a perspective of Europe, Venus goes into Pisces very late on Monday, and really it's pretty much a Venus in late Venus in late Aquarius kind of day. If you're in Asia, Australasia, Venus will go into Pisces tomorrow. If you're in Australia, New Zealand, probably sort of late morning tomorrow, off the top of my head. But still, if you're in Europe, and certainly if you're in the Americas, you may experience some of the energy of Venus moving through Pisces. It is a change. Venus has been in Aquarius, which is quite a detached placement for Venus. And so when it moves into Pisces, there's more emotion about it. There's more flexibility. We can make more of a special effort to be nice, a special effort to understand the people around us. And, Venus does rule money. It also rules aesthetics. And I think some of us might have a great sense of what looks good and what doesn't look good. So if we're out buying things, we're going to be very focused on what things look like and what things feel like. So overall, though, I think Venus moving into Pisces is a good thing because Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus, the planet of relationships, the planet of love, the planet of beauty, is now in its exaltation. So all things being equal, things connected with love, relationships and beauty should start to work better than they have done in the recent past. So another thing going on today is that the moon is moving through Aries. If you're in London, moon moves into Aries really early, just after midnight. Likewise, Paris, a bit later than that, but still really, really early in the morning, like 1:19 a.m. So if you're in the Americas, Europe, really Middle East, Africa, the moon is pretty much in Aries, if not all day, at least a great chunk of the day. By breakfast time, certainly moon will be in Aries. If you're in East Asia, Australasia, then it will happen later. You might have to wait till late morning, lunchtime, before the moon makes that sign change. And when the moon moves into Aries, it makes a conjunction with Mercury. So Moon-Mercury conjunction is pretty communicative. We are going to be perhaps quite forthright. Remember, Moon in Aries is quite forthright, and Moon is a communication planet, emotional communication. Mercury is a planet of more brain, cerebral communication. You put Moon and Mercury together in Aries, that's a great, that's a great combination for communication, for understanding things. It's not just about the words coming out of our mouth, but it's about our feelings. And so as we speak, we can be sensitive to our audience, and perhaps we can change our message to fit the changes within our audience as our audiences change. So overall, I do think that Moon-Mercury conjunction is pretty fortunate. And in many cases, communication is the right thing to do. Being forthright is the right thing to do, because we have to remember that the North Node is in Aries. So Mercury is in Aries, Moon is in Aries, North Node is in Aries. Actually, Chiron is in Aries. But we have the opportunity to communicate, and I think that's what the universe wants us to do. We're not really expected to just keep things to ourselves and make sure we don't rock the boat. No, I don't think that's the right thing to do. If something's wrong, we need to be quite clear about it. Another thing going on, which I mentioned when I looked at my weekly charts, when I looked at the astrology for the week as a whole, is that today Mars is decile Neptune. In other words, Mars is 36 degrees from Neptune. You can see that by eye. Mars is at 21 Aquarius, Neptune is at 27 Pisces, that's about 36 degrees apart. And so deciles are about the attempt to create something. And the pair Mars-Neptune, well, pair Mars-Neptune can be about sleaze and criminality and getting involved in things really we shouldn't be getting involved in. And some of us may just want to almost deliberately get involved in something that is a bit dubious because we're trying to create a certain impression. Perhaps we're trying to be risque or something like that. I'm not sure if that's particularly wise. I mean, do you really need to have that kind of style? Or maybe you're going to watch other people have that kind of style. You know, maybe people pretending to be gangsters or glamorizing criminality. That is a possibility, of course. Glamorizing criminal behavior, which is not nice, but it may be that some people feel that is a good style to adopt. As far as midpoints are concerned, a couple of midpoints that perhaps I should mention. Mercury and Mars are both on the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. So here's Venus, here's Jupiter, and actually Mercury looks as if it's conjunct the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. So the Venus-Jupiter midpoint will be. Hold on, let me just check where the Venus-Jupiter midpoint is, because I think it's. So you can see Mercury is conjunct the Venus-Jupiter midpoint, indeed, and let's go. And Mars looks as if it will be making a semi-square to the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. Let's make sure I've really got that right. There's Mars, semi-square, Venus-Jupiter midpoint. So Mercury and Mars configure that Venus-Jupiter pair. Venus-Jupiter is quite a good pair, quite fortunate pair. It's quite generous, and so we could be generous with what we say. We can enthusiastically praise people, make people feel good about themselves. We might not feel like doing it, but it could be worth doing. I think we'll immediately get a favourable response. So that's perhaps something we should really be considering, how to make people happy. It needn't be much of an effort, much of a sacrifice to make people happy. It really can be done. Just a few nice words, and perhaps a few suggestions. Optimistic, forward-thinking suggestions, which have no edge to them. Just be happy. Fun suggestions make these suggestions with great vigor and energy, and you'll get an amazing response. We will get an amazing response. So overall, that is something that we should perhaps consider. Now, I do actually just want to quickly look at today's astrology from a heliocentric perspective. I think I want to do this all the time. I think every day I should look at the planets from a heliocentric perspective, just to give us an idea about what's going on when we put the sun at the center of the solar system. We often forget about the heliocentric approach, but really we have to. We're in a solar system with the sun in the middle, and really we shouldn't just focus on the Earth being in the center of things. So just looking at the heliocentric chart very quickly. So just a reminder that we are beginning to get quite a big heliocentric conjunction taking place between Venus, Mars, and Pluto. In fact, today, pretty much at noon, there is a heliocentric conjunction between Mars and Pluto. It is exact. And so that means that issues of power are going to start becoming important. They are going to start becoming important. Just in the world, the heliocentric chart is completely impersonal. There's no ascendant. There's not really any moon because we don't have a sun. Remember, in the heliocentric chart, there's no sun because it's in the middle, but we do have an Earth, and the Earth is always the opposite to the sun. So we've got the sun in Pisces, but the Earth is in Virgo. So with this heliocentric Mars-Pluto conjunction, there is going to be a bit of a power struggle going on. People are going to want to assert themselves, and some people are going to want to violently assert themselves. Maybe this is not about our personal life, but it's something more collective, because heliocentric charts tend to be more collective. So look out for people and governments, armies throwing their weight around, because that could be a theme for today, and not just for today, I think for tomorrow as well. And also we should notice that the Earth is at 2134 Virgo, and that the Earth is moving towards a trine to Jupiter and Uranus. Now, as I discussed when I looked at the positions for the week, when I talked about this trine, it is not necessarily fortunate. Trines, sextiles, and heliocentric astrology can signify bad events just as well as good events. So Earth trining Jupiter, Uranus is going to stir things up. There may be a weak point somewhere that just breaks. That could happen with Earth trine the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. So that's the heliocentric position for today. I think I should be mentioning it. From a selfish perspective, it helps me keep track of the movements of the planets from a heliocentric perspective, but I hope you find that useful as well. So I'll go back to the usual chart, the geocentric chart, and I have now finished looking at the overall picture for today, and what I want to do now is look at the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Monday, March the 11th, 2024. Aries, you are ready to go. The moon is in your sign. It's making a conjunction to Mercury, and you really do feel that you're able to get your message across loud and clear. You are absolutely straightforward in terms of what you want. You don't mince your words. There's not much subtlety there. Now, you might seem a bit over the top, but really you're just being an Aries, and it's okay to just be an Aries. So what is it? What is it you've got to say? Do it. Say it. Okay, there's always a situation where you shouldn't say what's on your mind because you don't want to cause offense. You don't want to get yourself attacked. Okay, I understand that. But remember, Aries, the North Node is moving through your sign. The North Node is where you should be going to. North Node in Aries, you should be taking the initiative. You should be a leader. And with North Node in Aries, Moon Mercury conjunction in Aries, it is okay to be strident and vibrant. Don't mince your words. Now, I'm not saying that you have to upset people, at least not for the sake of it. In fact, you can spread quite a lot of happiness around. You have a sort of enthusiasm and an optimism, which I think in many cases will be infectious. And if you persuade people or try to persuade people that of all the possible things that could happen, the one thing that will happen might be the one thing that is optimum, the thing that really makes things all work out wonderfully. The best scenario can be the scenario that actually takes place. And this means, Aries, that, in many respects, you are a force for good. But don't try too hard. It's not a day when you should be trying to adopt a particular style. But some of you might be tempted to adopt a certain style. I've said, I've already talked about this decile between Mars and Neptune. So Mars is your ruler. It's decile Neptune. So what does that mean? Well, it might mean that you feel a certain need to show yourself to be not particularly respectable. You might perhaps want to get a reaction. Maybe if you're a younger, less responsible Aries, trying to adopt a style which is a bit edgy, makes other people nervous. It might be glamorous, but it's also a bit dangerous. So you do have to think, Aries, about the impression you're making. You don't have to stylize the way you present yourself. Just be yourself, and that's enough. And remember, there's a Moon Mercury conjunction. Also, it's tied up with a North Node. Be yourself. You don't have to play games. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. And that kind of honesty will attract plenty of good luck. Taurus. In some ways, Taurus, you may feel that you need to back off. There are things you need to work out in your own way, at your own pace. Taurus has a reputation for being, quite solid. Likes to build things up slowly. After all, Taurus is a fixed sign. You don't want to be hurried, and so if you're with other people, then you might feel that there's pressure on you to go faster than you want to go. So you might then take the view that if you're on your own, you can really make things happen, and that's the way to do it. Sorry, I just need to change the structure of this chart. This is not the kind of chart I want to put. Let me just make some changes to this chart. And let me put Taurus on. Let's rotate that. Put Taurus where it should be. There we go. So yes, you may want to keep yourself to yourself because you may feel that's the best way to be in control. I understand that, and yes, there are things you need to do on your own, and there are things you need to work through on your own. But we shouldn't forget that the planet Venus being your ruler, is moving into Pisces. Now, when it moves into Pisces does depend. I think if you're in the Americas, then it's going to be in the last half of the day. If you're not in the Americas, then that's more going to be something about very late this evening, or even tomorrow. But I think it needs to be pointed out that Venus is in the process of making a change, and Venus going into Pisces is fortunate because Venus is your ruler, and Venus is moving into the sign of its exaltation. It's comfortable. So you're starting to feel comfortable. And you're starting to feel comfortable with other people. And you're starting to be able to deal with other people in a much more effective way. That's especially if you're in the Americas, though. If you're in another part of the world, that might be more of something going on tomorrow. But be patient. But while you're waiting for Venus to go into Pisces, you may feel that you need some time on your own, just to really work things through. And I think that's probably right. But I would suggest that you don't entirely exclude the outside world, because there are people out there who I do believe you can benefit from. There seems to be one person in particular who is feeling very generous. And I don't mean necessarily financially generous. I'm also thinking perhaps emotionally generous. If you're with them, they won't hold back. They will give of what they have, and they will certainly want the best for you. And if you're feeling a bit negative about certain things, which you might be, this person will really cheer you up and will actually have some good ideas about what you can do. So that reinforces my view that it's just important not to completely shut out the outside world, because there are some important contacts that are there to be made. Gemini, you're feeling quite good about yourself, and that's good. I mean, sometimes Geminis can overthink things, and I think today, Gemini, when you really start to focus on what you can do, what your talents are, what your abilities are, there's really good reason to feel quite confident. And I won't say arrogant. More a feeling that you're looking good, and that's fine to look good, because I think you will be looking good, particularly if you're in the Americas, particularly late in the day. The reason I'm saying that is because Venus, is the planet of beauty, the planet of aesthetics. If you're in the Americas, then late in the day, Venus, not very late in the day, might be sort of early as sort of lunchtime. Venus is moving into Pisces, and Pisces is an important angle in your chart. And so, if you're in the Americas, you're going to feel, you're going to feel like, you're someone special, and you might be tempted to look in the mirror and admire yourself in certain situations. That's okay. Outside the Americas, to the east, okay, it could be something we're talking about tomorrow, but it's something at the very least you should be preparing for. And also, as far as your sociability is concerned, you're now really starting to feel the fact that Mercury, your ruler, is in Aries. So Mercury in Aries, for a Gemini, means Gemini's got something to say. And with the moon also in Aries, making a conjunction to Mercury, Gemini has certainly got something to say. And you can speak with great conviction. Just be direct. Don't sort of contradict yourself. Don't say one thing and then say something else. And don't use too many words. Don't talk too much. Yet something I'm accused of, talking too much. Sometimes if you use too many words, you lose your force, you lose your power. So Gemini, do be aware of that. Make your point, because if you make your point clearly, I think that people really are going to listen. And I think, Gemini, they're also going to recognize that you are an authority. not an authority in all departments, but one department. You really know your stuff. So perhaps, Gemini, what you need to do is concentrate your energies on what you know. One criticism that Geminis are often criticized, that's often made, but you're a jack of all trades and master of none. I'm very much aware of that. I can remember when I was at university, someone said to me, you're very talented, but I don't know what you're talented at. It's something there. That's perhaps a Gemini problem. Where is it? Yeah, there's a sort of vague, perhaps, feeling of. I'm not trying to show off or anything. I'm trying to sort of indulge in a bit of self-criticism here. You've got to focus on what your talent is and where your knowledge is and where your authority is. But once you find that area of authority, there'll be no stopping you, and you will be and particularly you will be able to communicate with great authority, and so that's something you've really got to focus on. And it's not about making people feel bad, by the way. In fact, you can make people feel good about themselves. You can encourage people to make the most of their potential. Now, there's a little bit of projection and hypocrisy there. I mean, no, not hypocrisy, not really, but projection. Projection is, you know that you should be making the most of your potential. I know I should be making the most of my potential, but it's perhaps easier to tell other people that they should make the most of their potential rather than make the most of my potential myself. So yes, there is an element of projection, but really, if you do encourage people, they're going to feel good, and they're going to like you, and it's going to really add a spark to your social life. Cancer. You really need to be seen and heard. I mean, I'm saying something quite similar here to a lot of other signs. So you may feel, I'm just saying the same thing to everyone. But in your case, I'm really very genuine about this, and I'm being very specific here as well. So let me unpack that. Let me explain what I mean. I think this is, you have got Cancer, Mercury moving into Aries. It's already in Aries. It moved into Aries, I think, pretty much over the weekend. So Aries, from a Cancerian perspective, is a high-profile sign in your chart. It's a high-profile angle, connected with how you present yourself to the world, how you let people know that you're really there, and it also represents the things you're trying to achieve. So Mercury is up there. It's about communicating what you want to do, what you need to do. And then the moon, which is your ruler. Moon rules Cancer. The moon moves into Aries as well. So the moon makes a conjunction to Mercury. So really, Cancer, it really is about pushing yourself forward. And it's the right thing to do. It really is the right thing to do. I understand that some Cancerians may feel a bit oversensitive. You may regard yourself as everything as being a bit top-heavy, putting too much energy, perhaps. You're perhaps feeling if you put too much energy into presenting yourself to the outside world, this is all a bit dangerous. But you're a Cancer. You understand your limits. You understand what can be achieved, and I would remind you that Cancer is in many ways one of the most successful of the 12 signs. As I say, think about some of the Cancerians and what they've achieved. Look at Julius Caesar was a Cancerian, Alexander the Great was a Cancerian, and Elon Musk is a Cancerian. So Cancer, don't limit yourself. You really can accomplish a great deal. Leo, you feel that something needs to change. It's not that things are bad, it's just that things could be a little more interesting and a little more enlightening. Yes, Leo, you can reach out for something perhaps which goes beyond your normal experience. And I think Leo, recently you may have been in the mood for doing a fair amount of brooding, especially with Sun in Pisces. Sun is your ruler. It doesn't function too well for you in Pisces, because from a Leo perspective, Pisces is quite an emotional and brooding place. But things are changing. Mercury has already left Pisces, and so that the Mercury has already left Pisces, and so that provides a bit of a spark for you, and that's what you need. You need a spark. That you can't keep on doing things in the same old way, and I think that if you look beyond your immediate environment, you're going to find yourself being very excited, and I think you're going to start to have a certain knowledge that things are going your way. It's not about a belief that things are going your way. It's just a knowledge, just knowing that you're on the right track. And I think that will be for you, I would have said, quite comforting. Now, in terms of how you're actually interacting with the world, it may be a good time to be making contact with people who live thousands of miles away, or learning about things which at first sight are completely alien to your everyday life. They may seem alien, but that's because you don't really know about them, you don't really understand them. But if you take the time to understand something, then I think that you will be suitably rewarded. It is worth making the effort, and you certainly shouldn't be satisfied with things that are with the same old stuff, things happening in the same old way. And I suppose this may say something also about how you relate to other people. You want something different, and certain people have perhaps become a bit boring. Maybe they're saying the same old thing. It's just not very exciting, and maybe you need to reach out, move beyond your normal hunting grounds or your prowling grounds, and just move somewhere else, extend your territory. And yes, I think you will find that things really are looking good. But you need confidence. Leos always need confidence, and I think you have that confidence, and also most importantly you have that spark, because Leo is a fire sign, and it's always good when you've got a lot of stuff in fire. And with all that emphasis in Pisces, the sun is still in Pisces. It's just there might have been a feeling recently that it's just been all a bit too complicated and muddy and emotional, and there just hasn't been a spark. But now with Mercury moving into Aries, Moon moving into Aries, I think you've got the spark, Leo, that you really need. Virgo, you don't suffer fools gladly. Not really. Although sometimes you just keep your mouth shut and you allow people to make fools of themselves, because that's perhaps easiest. That's the easiest way to approach the problem. But I think it's important not to really tolerate people's foolishness. Some people are being stupid, and you have to work out how best to respond to them. You've got many ways of responding. One response is just get out of their way, let them be fools, but you just don't want to be around to pick up the pieces. Another approach is to intervene. To tell someone they're being stupid, to be very clear that you don't approve of their behaviour. I think that's okay, because I think you will be able to communicate in exactly the right way. It's not about telling someone they're being an idiot. It's just about listening to your feelings and understanding how best to correct someone's mistake, almost without them feeling that you're correcting a mistake. I think you can do it. I know that might sound like something very difficult for a Virgo to do, and under normal circumstances it might well be difficult, but today you're able to correct people's mistakes, but at the same time make them feel good about themselves. Sounds like hard work, but Virgo, I think that is something that you can do. Though don't spend too long interacting with other people. I mean, I think there is work to be done on your own. There's a lot of thinking to do, Virgo. Sort of energetic thinking. Your mind is going to be moving very quickly. And after all, there's a conjunction between the Moon and Mercury today, and Mercury is your ruler. So your inner processing of facts and information is going to be going really, really fast, and you're going to be coming up with lots and lots of ideas. Take these ideas seriously. I know that Virgo, you can be very self-critical, but it's not a time to be too self-critical. If you get to the bottom of things, you can really start to understand what can be done, and you may actually, if you handle things correctly, suddenly get a great feeling of freedom. But yes, you can make things happen, and you can get people to listen to you. And you'll find, that people are going to be surprisingly open to criticism, constructive criticism, but you will just have a way with words. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Libra. Okay, you do have to consider the world out there. After all, we do have the Moon and Mercury moving into Aries, and Aries is your opposite sign. So you can't really expect to be able to do everything on your own. You have to consider other people's feelings. You have to listen to what they say, and maybe you should allow them to take action. because there are people out there who want to do stuff. They really do want to do stuff. They're ready to do stuff. They want to do it now. And perhaps you should just follow along and see what happens. Okay, there are limits to that. You don't want to be a lemming. You don't want to follow someone off a cliff, which I suppose is what lemmings do. But I'm not. So I'm not advocating blind following. It's got to be reasoned following, and you've got to monitor the situation all the time. But I think that's something that may be worth doing. Another thing going on today, especially if you're in the Americas, is that Venus, your ruler, is changing sign. I mean, in fact, wherever you are on Earth, whatever your time zone, Venus is certainly changing sign. I think you're aware that something is changing. It's just that if you're in the Americas, you will actually see the change happening. If you're in other parts of the world, you will maybe just preparing for the change. And this sign change is, I think, fortunate because Venus is moving into the sign of its exaltation. So Venus is your ruler. So when it moves into a sign where it is exalted, that should be good for you. And I think that you will start to have a good sense of how to arrange things, how to organize things in a way that concurs with not just your own feelings, but other people's feelings. You can make people feel comfortable. You can start creating environments that make people feel comfortable. So if you're a Libran, interior designer, then I would have thought that Venus moving into Pisces should be pretty fortunate. Turning to relationships, and I've already mentioned that there's a load of stuff moving in Aries now, with the Moon and Mercury moving into Aries, your opposite sign. So really that does suggest that relationships are important. They're not a part of your life that can be ignored, though I do understand that relationships can take many forms. It's not just about romance. It can be about business relationships. It can be about friendships. It can just be someone you meet. You have a 5-minute relationship because you're having a powerful conversation, and then you go your different ways and you never see each other again. So relationships can take many different forms. But there does seem to be one person in particular who you have a connection with today who can really make you feel good. They are going to be optimistic, happy. They're going to want the best for you. So you should give them a chance to work their magic. Scorpio. I think, Scorpio, you may feel a little bit impatient. You're going to want things to be better. And actually, Scorpio, you're going to be a hard person to please today. You clearly have an idea about the way things should be, and if things are not that way, then you're going to make a fuss, and you will be impatient. You will have a sense of the kind of order you expect there to be in your world, and that means that some people may feel a bit pressurized by you, because they might feel that you're a hard person to please because you're very demanding. Maybe that is the case. And so, Scorpio, you kind of have to get the balance right. You're absolutely correct to think that things need to be changed. But at the same time, you're dealing with people. You're dealing with people with all their vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and you just can't expect them to just just do things your way straight away. You have to find a way of asserting yourself. And, the way to assert yourself today is really through kindness. I mean, I talked about kindness a few days ago, and I was recommending that Scorpios be kind. Yeah, it's another day when kindness does matter. You have to address people's weaknesses. And if you really listen to your heart, you'll know how to build people up, by saying the right words, by focusing on the good rather than the bad. If you're trying to get someone to do things your way, to focus on their talents, focus on what they're good at, encourage them. It's kind of better to use the carrot rather than the stick, in order to get people to rally around your ideas, the way you want the world to be. So Scorpio, I think that seems to be pretty clear. And I should say that if you handle things correctly, I think people are just naturally going to gravitate towards you. They just need to get over perhaps that fear, because I think in some respects there could be something a little bit scary about you, but it's not a given. Make a special effort to be generous and warm and kind, and you'll get an appropriate response. And once you get that appropriate response, then you can start thinking about what you want. And what you want is just a bit of order. It is a time for creating order. Things have been building up, perhaps over the last few days, even weeks, and now things, things do need to be cleared up a bit. But that is certainly something you can do. One other thing, Scorpio, don't overdo it. Today there might actually be a sudden blast of energy, because there are lots of things you want to do, but in the process you might take on too much and exhaust yourself. So Scorpio, try to focus on one or two things, one or two goals. Don't try and do 20. Don't have 20 goals that all need to be completed today. That's not going to work. Just be modest in what you're trying to accomplish, and then I think that today will be quietly successful. Sagittarius. You benefit, Sagittarius, from an increasing amount of fire. Sagittarius is a fire sign. Sagittarius is an exciting sign. It should be exciting. It's about sparks and buzz and fire, and that's what you want. And, recently there hasn't been much fire in the sky. But now we're making this up. Mercury recently went into Aries, and of course Aries is a fire sign, and now Moon has gone into Aries, and so things are quite literally getting fired up, and you are feeling a greater sense of excitement. And I think it's also easier for you to tune into, what you're good at. And what you're good at is not dependent on anything else going on in the outside world. It's all about you and your abilities and being able to harness them. And that's really something that you can do today. I think in many respects, Sagittarius, you're probably the most creative of the 12 signs. But it's got to be creativity on your terms. Some of this creativity may be about the way you're able to communicate, because with a conjunction between the moon and Mercury, that is a great ability to express yourself, in a unaffected way, just being completely honest, completely open. Now, that does mean that a few Sagittarians might find themselves being a little bit tactless, saying things which may be true, but which might nonetheless be a bit hurtful. I don't know what to suggest. I kind of suggest that maybe I should say, well, you don't be hurtful, don't, be careful what you say, but I don't even think that's appropriate. I think you'll know how to be, how to limit your tactlessness. It'll be appropriate, I think. Sometimes people need to be offended. People need to be presented with fundamental truths about who they are, what mistakes they're making, that kind of thing. And so possibly if you do cause offence, maybe that's just the way it is. And maybe, in fact, that was the right thing for you to be doing. And by being spontaneous, and I think today you really must be spontaneous, Sagittarius, that's the right thing to be doing. By being spontaneous, you are going to make yourself popular. That's what people want. People want spontaneity. And they want a spontaneous Sagittarius to make their life more exciting. And that is certainly something you can do. And so you can not just brighten your life up, but you can brighten a lot of other people's lives up. So that's what you should be doing. And I think things can look really good. Just be yourself, and that's about it. That is it. Be yourself. Capricorn. It might all be a little too much today. There is a lot of stuff happening, and there is a danger, Capricorn, that you just feel that it's just all too much. Is it a danger? Maybe it's just a natural realization, and you need to perhaps understand your own needs and also your own limits. You do have limits, and I think today your limits are going to be very clear to you. You know that there are limits to how much energy you have, and there are limits to what you can tolerate, and limits to how much you can handle other people, because some people are just too much. So if you decide to spend the day, for example, at home or in somewhere where you feel really safe, then that's probably the right thing to do. You will be making an appropriate use of the energies available to you. And I certainly think that you shouldn't be trying too hard to get attention. I know that some Capricorns are going to feel that they probably should be trying to get attention. They may feel that you may feel that is what is expected of you. It may well be expected of you to try and get attention, but just because something's expected of you doesn't mean that you should follow it through. What matters today, Capricorn, is really it's your own security. Making sure your own security is all sorted out. Now, having said all that, I think that Capricorns are going to be very good at stirring things up and making people think. So perhaps this is something you can do once you've anchored yourself. Then you can start to interact you can start to communicate, and then you'll find that actually some of your messaging is really spot on, and you're able to really make an impact, point things out that it just hasn't occurred to anyone before. And maybe it's because once you are grounded, once you're feeling really secure in your space, you're going to be able to think clearer, and you're going to be able to communicate clearer. And if you need to tell someone something, even if it's not what they want to hear, you, I think, will be very good at it. And it goes back to what I was saying. You're able to stir things up. I think that is absolutely the right thing to be doing, and I don't think you should apologize. Someone has to point things out, and that someone has to be you. Aquarius, you are feeling quite gregarious today. You're ready to interact. You know that you've got something to offer, and you've got something to say. In fact, you've got lots of things to say. There isn't much limit to what you've got to say. The words will flow, and I think that in most cases, you will be quite impressive. Particularly when you're discussing something that you understand really well, because there are certain things you really understand well, and once you give yourself an opportunity to talk about these things, then there'll be no stopping you. And you should also be considering who you are communicating with. Aquarius is a fixed sign, and sometimes you can sort of get into a rut when you're only only talking to one or two people, to a certain group that maybe even be a bit of a clique, people you are used to communicating with, and everyone else you don't really care. Well, I think that today you need to expand that a bit. There are people you haven't been talking to who you need to talk to. It's not that it's expected of you. It's that if you want, if you want to make the most of everyone around you, then you've got to give everyone a chance to explain themselves to you. People have got things to offer, which you can benefit from. But if you don't talk to them, well, how can you expect to benefit in any way at all? So in some respects, Aquarius, that is your challenge. And don't worry if you find yourself gossiping about nothing in particular. You may feel it is a waste of time, but actually, through vague, unfocused conversations about nothing in particular, you will gather some very useful information. And as the information comes in, you will start to be able to get a broader picture. And so, get the facts sorted out, collect the facts, listen to what you're being told, and then yes, you will then be able to understand the world around you, and you may actually find some solutions to quite a few long-standing problems. So that's probably the way to make the most of whatever's going on today. And at the same time, Aquarius, some of your ideas are really brilliant. And once you tell people what's about your ideas, what's on your mind, I think that they will be very impressed. Pisces. Venus is moving into your sign. Now, quite when it moves into your sign sort of depends on your time zone. If you are in the old world, if you're in Western Europe, Asia, Venus goes into Pisces very late in the day, and quite possibly into the next day. And certainly if you're in Asia, Australasia, Venus goes into Pisces tomorrow. On the other hand, if you're in the Americas, Venus goes into Pisces today. It goes into Pisces. For example, in New York, Venus will go into Pisces at I think at 10 to 6 in the evening, and if you're in California, Los Angeles, that's 10 to 3 in the afternoon. So the latter chunk of the day, and if you're in the Americas, Venus is going into Pisces, and I think that is that's pretty good. I think it enables you to really understand the world around you on an emotional level, and I think that you'll have a great sense of aesthetics. You'll understand what is beautiful, where you want to bring beauty and harmony into your life. So that Venus in Pisces is important. If you're not in the Americas, don't feel left out, because Venus is going to go into Pisces tomorrow. That aside, there are things leaving Pisces. I mean, Mercury has just left Pisces. The moon is leaving Pisces. Mercury is now in Aries, and the moon is now in Aries. And, with Mercury moving into Aries, there may be someone out there who seem to have a lot to say. They like giving advice. Who is that person who likes to give advice, who likes to tell you what to do? If you find yourself at the receiving end of someone's advice, then you can put it down to Mercury moving into Aries, and perhaps conjunct, perhaps Mercury conjunct Moon in Aries. Should you follow this advice? I don't know. You have to work that out. People will be telling you things. People will perhaps be telling you how you need to handle money. What you should be doing with the money, what you should not be doing with the money, what mistakes you made in the past. I think that will be happening. You may find yourself at the receiving end of advice and even criticism. And it's down to you to try to work out what's going on. It may well be that someone is projecting. They're projecting all their problems onto you. That is very often the case. But it's possible that you're being given sincere advice, which you might be advised to listen to. It's down to you to really work out how to deal with it. I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing. And as far as relationships are concerned, some of the people close to you will be quite verbal, and they may communicate with power, and they'll have a lot to say about everything, and you might not like some of the things they say, but just because you don't like some of the things someone says doesn't mean that you should reject them or not have anything to do with them. That just goes with the territory. If you want to be with people, then you must be prepared to listen to them, and you must be prepared to accept that sometimes you're not going to like what you hear. But it's all about balance and being reasonable, and just understanding that people change from day to day, from month to month, and just right now some of the people around you just have more to say than usual. And really, Pisces, that's it. I am now going to look at the day from the perspective of the I Ching. I asked the question, what is Monday going to be like? For those watching the I Ching section of this video. And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 16, which is contentment. Now, in the Wilhelm translation, this hexagram is called enthusiasm, but I kind of feel contentment is a better translation. This is a translation that Greg Vincup used in his book, which was published in the 1980s. Contentment gives an impression of complacency. We're trying to be content. We're trying to say, well, things are okay. I mean, things may not be great, but we're in control. Things could be worse. Let's just hang out here, enjoy the situation, and not feel any great pressure to move on. Of course, the Wilhelm translation of enthusiasm provides a little more craziness to it. Enthusiasm. Well, we're happy where we are. We're enthusiastic about where we are. It's great. But is it great? And where you've got contentment, there's a hint that somewhere something is going wrong and we're not actually as contented as we'd like to be. We're supposed to be content. How are you? I'm fine. That's always the response. I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm content. But as you say those words, I'm fine, that actually you're not fine, or you're about to be not fine, or at least the world is about to be not fine. And in fact, I think some of us may be putting a brave face on it. We're dealing with something that is bringing us down. It's not bringing us down in a completely destructive way. We're still alive. It's not that disastrous. And remember, when I do these I Ching readings, I'm only talking. I do a new one every day. So because I do a new one every day, that I think that perhaps in some ways diminishes their power. I'm not talking about the whole year. I'm just talking about one day. I think usually. But we know that things are not fine. And as this hexagram progresses, that's the fifth line, just knowing that things are not fine. And just we know that we're in a state that is, we're trying to make the best of something that's not really great. Then the top line moves. One approach to the top line is it's just about plain delusion. We think everything's fine, we're being enthusiastic, and we are totally deluded. Another way of looking at it, and which is probably a better way of looking at it, is we are starting to face reality. It's like contentment has run its course. The hexagrams, they usually start at the bottom and they go up, 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 and then they hit the top. And then they run their course, and contentment has run its course because the top line is moving. And we start to realize that things are not fine, not just at an unconscious level. We say to ourselves, things are not fine, and we say that to other people, and that's reality. And it's not very nice coming to reality, but it's better to be in a state of reality rather than delusion. And so this hexagram 16, it does move, and it moves to hexagram number 12, standstill. We eventually reach a stage where nothing is happening, where it's just impossible to make progress. The Wilhelm translation does give this indication that the powers of evil have spread everywhere. that's over dramatic. But we've got the top 3 lines are unbroken. That's heaven in its place. The bottom 3 lines are broken. Earth in that's place, and there is a gap between the two. Heaven and earth are separated. Heaven is not going to get involved with down here on earth, because particularly there's too much bad stuff going on. But yeah, things have just hit a standstill. We're just not going to make any progress, and I think what we have to do when we've got a standstill situation is not try to move things prematurely. We may feel that we have to negotiate. We may feel we have to talk to people. We may feel we have to engage with people that we don't like, that we feel don't have our best interests at heart. We may feel that that's a way to deal with the standstill. We may feel that that's a way to get out of the standstill. But maybe that's not the right approach. And some of us might take the view that the best way to deal with this hexagram is to just retreat. Who are the people that are holding us back, that can't do us any good? Yeah, isolate those people and just stand back, and just don't expect much to happen in the short term, because any action, if we really try to force things today, I suspect that the results will be, it'll be worse and useless. Sorry to be so negative, but that's the way it is. That's what the I Ching comes up with, and I suppose I have to say, well, take it or leave it. But yeah, it's only a forecast for one day, and tomorrow is going to be something else. Now I'm going to turn back to the astrology, and I want to look at France. So I was asked to look at the horoscope of Jordan Bardella. I don't quite know how to pronounce that. I suppose we should if we want to talk about France, we should start talking about France and France. Storming of the Bastille, July the 14th, 1789. I've gone for 1:30 p.m. I don't know how accurate that is. France, Cancerian country. And, I talked about Emmanuel Macron recently, and so that made me think, how does Emmanuel Macron relate to the country that he is president of? Can we see anything? So if we look at Emmanuel Macron's chart, Emmanuel Macron here he's a man who really believes that he is right about everything. He seems to have a complete certainty about him. And he's often called Jupiter. And I suppose he's got his Jupiter might be retrograde, but it is in Cancer, in a sign of its exaltation. If you use Placidus, it's sort of in the 5th house, though perhaps has a certain 6th house feel to it. But if you're using whole signs, it's in fact, if you're in the whole signs, using whole signs, it's in the 7th house. But I don't really want to spend too much time on Macron's chart. I just want to consider how Macron relates to his country. So assuming the timing we have for the storming of the Bastille is correct and is 1:30 p.m., then we can see that France has a midheaven of 1251 Leo, and Macron's Mars is on the midheaven on France's midheaven, and so that might immediately be a point of confrontation. The people of France, the country, wants to go in a particular direction. Macron, with his Mars, is trying to pull the country in this particular direction. stuff like increasing the pension age and things like that, which the French are just absolutely not happy about. Macron is trying to push the country in a particular direction, but the country is not always very happy about it. And even if we don't have the exact time for the storming of the Bastille, I mean, I know there are loads of other charts for France. You could take the chart of the Fifth Republic, I suppose, but the storming of the Bastille is this very primal moment in French history, an emotional moment, and France celebrates celebrates Bastille Day. It's July the 14th is France's big day, like July the 4th is for the United States. So I think there is a strong case for looking at the chart for the storming of the Bastille. And so at that time there was a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, well, Venus-Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and so Macron's Mars is on that conjunction. And I think that represents perhaps the clash. He's trying to engage with his country, but that engagement is not always particularly comfortable. But I don't want to, as I said, I don't want to spend too long on Macron. I want to actually start to focus on the person he beat in the last presidential election, and that was Marine Le Pen. Now, I have looked at Marine Le Pen's horoscope. I've looked at her horoscope before, and yes, she is a Leo, born on August the 5th, 1968, 11:20 a.m. in New York. I spent years at school learning French. I still can't pronounce it. Neuilly-sur-Seine, and so she's a Leo, got Mercury, Sun, and Venus in that sign. She's got Saturn in Aries. I think that Saturn in Aries that Marine Le Pen has is really, really problematic. Saturn was in Aries in the late 60s, and Saturn is exalted in Libra. Therefore, it is fallen in Aries. It doesn't work very well in Aries, and she's got it in the 7th house. Now, in Indian astrology, Saturn is very fortunate when it's in the 7th house, even if it's in Aries, even if it's in sidereal Aries. Now, former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, I mean, she was in power for years, and I never understood how long she was able to stay in power for. And she had, certainly in her Indian chart, she had in her sidereal chart, she had Saturn in Aries in the 7th house, and I think it was that Saturn in the 7th house which kept Nicola Sturgeon in power for so long. Now, why is this not going to work for Marine Le Pen? The problem is that from a sidereal perspective, from a perspective of her Indian horoscope, she does not have Saturn in the 7th house. She has Saturn in the 8th house, because in her Indian chart, her Saturn is still in Aries, but her ascendant goes back into Virgo. So that means in her Indian horoscope, she has Saturn in the 8th house in Aries. So her Saturn is in its fall in both zodiacs, and I really don't think this helps. I think it really makes it very difficult for her to make progress. I just feel that she's just not particularly that she's not particularly lucky. And I just wanted, if I can, to look at Marine Le Pen's chart. I'm looking at Marine Le Pen. I'm looking there at Marine Le Pen's Western chart, but to look at her I also wanted to look at her Vedic chart, if I've got it. I think I've got I've got it somewhere, or maybe I haven't. Well, here it is. Okay, so Marine Le Pen's Vedic chart is here. So if you're looking at her Vedic chart, there you can see her Saturn is in the 8th house, and in Aries. So I think that Saturn does cause a lot of problems. She has that's her ascendant. Her ascendant goes back into Virgo in her Vedic chart, and she has been in her Rahu Dasha for the Rahu, remember, is the North Node, since 2014, and this is the Dasha where she's lost two presidential elections. She's lost the 2017 presidential election. Is that right? Yeah, and she lost, I think, was there one in 2022? So she's lost two presidential elections, both against Macron. But Rahu is desperate for success. Rahu is really keeps going, keeps plowing through, and she is about to experience her Rahu Mahadasha and her Ketu Subdasha. So at the moment she's in her Rahu Mahadasha, her Mercury Subdasha. So there's her Mercury. Her Mercury is a bit penned in there. It's got the Sun and Mars on either side of it. So that's coming up. That's the dasha she's in at the moment. But I just feel that with that Saturn in the 8th house, and Saturn is also its ruler of her 5th house. What sort of credit is she bringing from previous incarnations? I'm just not convinced about it. So overall, I really don't think that Marine Le Pen is ever going to be French president. I mean, that's my view. Now, going back to her natal chart, it's probably a good idea to look at her chart comparing it to that of France. So there's a Bastille chart, and let's look at her chart next to. What does she do to France? Assuming that France has a midheaven, a Bastille midheaven is at 1251 Leo. Her Mercury is, and her Sun, she has this Sun-Mercury conjunction on France's midheaven. So it does seem that at a certain level she does attract people's attention. There are a lot of people in France who feel that she's the way forward. So no doubt about that. And I suppose that's helped her get to be where she is at the moment. Being the challenger for two elections in a row. Or was it more? I don't know. I mean, she certainly was up against Macron in the last two elections. I can't really remember what happened in the election before that. And you could also say that at the time of the storming of the Bastille, the moon was at 12 degrees Aries. So the moon at Aries is, you could say the moon at Aries is the French people. And so you could also then say that she has the North Node in Aries. So that's the way forward. And so North Node in Aries is about engaging with the French people and perhaps in trying to really understand what they want. And perhaps that was one of her desire to engage with the French people, perhaps allowed her to sort of break from some aspects of her father, because the original party before was Front National. So her father was Jean-Marie Le Pen, he was a real hardcore right winger, and so she has made an effort to soften the party and now to change its name. Of course, some people say it's still the same party. Her enemies take it, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on French politics, but I think that North Node conjunct the Moon perhaps demonstrates the efforts she's making to try to connect with the French people. I mean, that's something that politicians have to do. But what I really wanted to talk about today, what I was asked to talk about today, was Jordan Bardella. And I have to say, I'm ashamed to say this, but until a few days ago, I'd never heard of him. I didn't know anything about him. But, we have a time, date of birth for him. He is certainly a rising star in the National Assembly. He's already a member of the European Parliament. He's president of the National Rally. So many people think that maybe he's the real future. And here is his chart. No, that's a solar arc direction chart. Let me find his chart. So sorry, there's his chart. September the 13th, 1995, 3:42 p.m. in Drancy, France. And as you can see, he is really young. He's only 28 years old, so he hasn't even had his Saturn return. Saturn, if you don't know, Saturn takes 29 and a half years to go round the Sun, and he's still only 28. He is a Virgo. My first reaction when I hear he's a Virgo, it's saying, can a Virgo really become a leader, president of France? I think I just have this maybe a prejudice in terms of Virgos, thinking, when I think of global leaders, to begin with, I don't really think about Virgos. Can Virgos really be successful leaders? But when I think about it again, yes, they can be. An example of a successful Virgoan leader would be the American president Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson, from a political point of view, was the most effective American president, certainly since post-war. He was politically, he was brilliant, and he was a Virgo. In terms of English history, some people, you have these polls about who do you think was the most effective, the best British monarch, and someone who often comes up very high is Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. Because she wasn't married, she was a Virgin Queen, and she was a Virgo. And if you're into Russian history, one Russian Tsar who everyone has heard of is him, Ivan the Terrible, born September the 4th, 1530, with his sun at 11 Virgo, conjunct Mars. Yes, Ivan the Terrible was pretty brutal, but he left his mark, and I suppose you could say that he was a successful Tsar. Yes, you can be a successful leader and also be a Virgo. So I just wanted to get over my immediate prejudice about Virgos reaching the top of the political ladder. Yes, they can do it. Now, going back to Jordan Bardella's chart, he has Sun. His sun is square his Neptune. Sorry, his sun is square his ascendant. Right there. His sun has a kind of a 10th house feel to it. I know it's on the cusp of the 9th, But if you use whole sign houses, then that is very 10th house. And his sun is opposition Saturn. Now, this opposition Saturn is critical to understanding him. There is something very gritty about it. Hard work, things are tough. And with this Virgo, I think that Virgo is almost the planet, can be the planet of the working class, the workers, the people who have to work away, by hand. That's Virgo, and I don't know to what extent it's true, but I think one of the sort of the stories that Jordan Bardella likes to tell about his life, how he likes to justify himself, is to say that he came from a poor background. That he grew up in, again, I'm going to mispronounce this, in the banlieues, which are these suburbs of Paris where there's currently a lot of crime. They are quite deprived, and so he was brought up in a poor background. That's his sun in Virgo. That's his credibility. And I think he's really pushing that with his sun in Virgo opposition Saturn. That's what he's trying to show. And that sun in Virgo is square his square his ascendant. He's got moon in Capricorn, very earthy. There's something very focused about that. Moon in Capricorn gets results. Can be very selfish, can be very focused on himself, and putting his own interests first. But I suppose if you want to be a politician, you have to put your own interests first. So the moon in Capricorn may not be such a bad thing. And another thing you have to do if you want to be a politician is to make speeches. You have to be able to communicate. And he has Mercury on, so if you use Placidus house cusps, he has, you don't need to use Placidus house cusp with the midheaven. The midheaven is always the midheaven. He's got Mercury pretty close to the midheaven. And so Mercury is about how he presents himself to the world out there. He is a communicator. And that Mercury is in the same sign as his North Node. And he's got the North Node on the midheaven. And he's got Mercury on the midheaven. So in terms of his destiny, he's doing the right thing, getting involved in politics with Mercury and North Node conjunct the midheaven, North Node conjunct the midheaven. He's doing the right thing, communicating to his audience and to his electorate. And his Mercury is strengthened even more by the fact that it is squaring the sun-moon midpoint. So there's the moon, there's the sun. So the sun-moon midpoint is going to be at around 16 Cancer. So Mercury is square the sun-moon midpoint. So in any chart, always look at something aspecting the sun-moon midpoint. This is, the point that Charles Harvey made in him and Mike Harding's book, Working with Astrology. The sun-moon midpoint, that planet on the sun-moon midpoint can be really critical in understanding someone. Of course, the example Charles Harvey used was Janis Joplin, who had Jupiter aspecting the sun-moon midpoint. But in his case, Jordan Bardella, he's got Mercury on the sun-moon midpoint, and it's close to the midheaven. So this might mean that he can be an effective orator. And okay, he's only 28 years old. So maybe his powers of oratory are going to develop as he grows older. I have no idea whether he really is a good orator at the moment. But his horoscope would very much suggest that he was. Also, he's got Mars in Scorpio. Always good to have Mars in Scorpio. Mars in its own sign. uh, clearly he's just someone who is very focused, and I think he said that the reason why he got involved in I think it was originally in the Front National, I think, but it wasn't because of the policies. It was because of Marine Le Pen. I think he had a great admiration for Marine Le Pen. So how would he relate to Marine Le Pen if he perhaps one day wants to take over from her? I don't know what his plans are. Here's the horoscope of Marine Le Pen, and here is his chart. So we've got Jordan Bardella's chart in the middle, and we've got Marine Le Pen on the outside. And so Marine Le Pen has an ascendant of 15 Libra. So that 15 Libra is how she presents herself. And his Mercury is conjunct her ascendant. So that suggests an immediate tie, a sort of an intellectual tie. So at an intellectual level, in terms of his ideas, when he comes across Marine Le Pen, when he did come across her, how she presented herself, it seems to be an immediate sort of mercurial connection there, which perhaps brought him into the party. At least that's what he claimed. Further, he's got his Sun opposition Saturn. So his Sun is at 20 Virgo, Saturn is at 21 Pisces, and Marine Le Pen's Pluto is up there. His Pluto is at 20. Her Pluto is at 21 Virgo. So that Pluto is a very generational planet. But because I suppose Marine Le Pen is a public figure, it almost becomes a personal planet. Remember my views on politicians, that politicians are not really entirely human beings. They are instruments of the collective, and so if you become a politician, your Pluto can become like a personal planet. And so that Pluto represents this woman from a different generation, but a Pluto in Virgo generation, had an impact on him. That's his Pluto conjunct his Virgo. That that had a big impact on his Sun. Further, her Uranus at 26 Virgo is on his Venus. So that does indicate the appeal that Marine Le Pen had on him. If we take what he says at face value, that he was attracted to Marine Le Pen, at least her ideas or whatever, how she presented himself, not first and only in terms of policies, that was secondary. And so I do think we have some important linkages there, and with Uranus and Pluto being these collective energies hitting his Sun-Venus conjunction. He's got a Sun. There's his Sun-Venus conjunction with her Uranus-Pluto conjunction hitting it. So that might have been quite compulsive. When he's right. When he saw her, she was just something that he really felt that he wanted to get close to her and become part of her party. Okay, so that's him and Marine Le Pen. That makes sense. Then there's him and France. It is important that you have a relationship, a connection with the country you aspire to perhaps rule, to govern. I'm assuming that he wants to be president one day. And there is, we'll put France in the middle, and we'll put him on the outside. And what's really interesting is the Saturn. their Saturns are in the same place. So at the time of the storming of the Bastille, Saturn was at 2310 Pisces, and Jordan Bardella's Saturn is at 2125 Pisces. So the Saturns are together. That's the connection between him and France. That's the primary connection. That is one of a tie that is really strong. So when France has its Saturn return, which will be, I think, at the beginning of next year, he will also have his Saturn return here. So his Saturn return is going to be very connected with that of France. But is that a way to rule a country? Is France as a country going to be impressed by him? Or is it going to find something quite difficult about him? I mean, his sun is opposition France's Saturn. I think if his sun is opposition France's Saturn, that says also something about how he feels about his country. In some ways, he perhaps feels a bit restricted by his own country. He feels uncomfortable in his own country. There's something about his own country that he is really unhappy about, but he wants to change his country, and I think that's perhaps part of what it is. And his Neptune is there's France's sun at 22 Cancer, and his Neptune is at 2254 Capricorn. So I don't know what was going on in France in 1995. Neptune was on France's sun, and that's when he was born. So perhaps France doesn't quite know what to make of him. I'll be probably looking at his chart again. But that's him and France. Then, there's the question of, what's going on in his life at the moment, aside from the fact that he's got a Saturn return. I mean, with that Sun Saturn opposition in with Sun in Virgo opposition Saturn in Pisces. I mean, Saturn is going to hit him quite hard. Not immediately. It will happen after the election. Saturn goes stationary, I think this summer at around, I think it goes stationary at about 19 Pisces. So it'll go stationary, opposition his Sun. So that may be difficult when it happens, but that will be next year. So that's some of the stuff happening in his life. I suppose we should briefly consider his solar arc directions, or indeed his solar return. So these are his solar arc directions. I was just wanting to check to see if there was anything going on from a solar arc perspective. So remember, with solar arc directions, we are moving everything by 1 degree for every year. So he has got his Sun at 26 Virgo. So we want to move his Sun. We want to find out what's going on right now. We would move his Sun around 28 degrees. So if we move his Sun 28 degrees, we find that the Sun is at 1815 Libra today. I mean, I just did it for right now. But his midheaven is at 21 Libra. So he's already had the Sun conjunct his Mercury a couple of years ago, and this presumably would have coincided with his advancement through his party. I don't know what year he was elected to the European Parliament, but clearly Sun conjunct his Mercury was worked pretty well for him. And then in approximately 3 years' time, in 2027, he will have Sun exactly on his midheaven. And of course, in 3 years' time, we do have presidential elections in France, 2027. Um, does that mean he's going to be president of France? I mean, probably not, no. But I think that might indicate that if his son is on his midheaven at the same time as the presidential elections, it may be that the presidential elections, regardless of what happens, are a further step up in terms of his political ambitions. I haven't looked at this in great detail, but we also have to consider that when the sun crosses his midheaven, remember he's got a sun opposition Saturn in his chart. So what happens in 2026? He's got Saturn hitting his IC. So I don't know, 26, 27, you could, if you just look at the sun in isolation, you can be quite positive about it. But then he's got Saturn on his IC. So the next year or two, he's probably starting to feel it. Now, is that responsibility? Is he going to come unstuck? I mean, his political enemies have already tried to get him. I mean, in terms of, look it up. There have been some of his practices about. I don't. You can get into it. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's very serious, but he may have broken. There have been suggestions he's broken certain rules or procedural rules or rules connected with the European Parliament. Or, I don't know. As I said, you can check that out. So maybe Saturn conjunct the IC. There's going to be quite a problem running up. And remember, next year he has his Saturn return. I don't believe the Saturn return can possibly be easy. Is going to be particularly easy for him. So that is something to watch out for. Okay, that I think is all I'm going to say about Jordan Bardella. I'm not going to go into details about, there are European elections in a few months' time, but I think I will consider that in another video. This is just really introducing Jordan Bardella to myself because I'd never heard of him before and I just wanted to look at his chart. So that's it. I hope you found that useful or interesting. I know that not everyone is interested in French politics. It's an important country, France. I think we should be considering what is going on in France, and who the main characters are in terms of politics. It's not just Emmanuel Macron. It's not even just Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen. There are also other people, and one of those other people is Jordan Bardella. Okay, yes. So thank you for listening. If you found that interesting, I would be grateful if you were to like this video, and I would of course be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.